Hey everybody, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Summit for this very special second Sunday of Easter, or as we like to call it in the church, Divine Mercy Sunday. You know, intimacy comes through community. And intimacy comes through communion, okay? To be in union with. That's what communion means, to be in union with. Communion, community, same word, right? To be in communion with, to be in one with. And that's how intimacy comes, because you can't have intimacy with yourself. You need to have intimacy with another. And in these readings this week, we see that in the early church with the resurrected Lord, right? We see this intimacy, we see this communion really come to life. In the first reading from Acts, we hear, listen to these words. Tell me if this formula sounds familiar to you. They devoted themselves to the teaching of the apostles and to the communal life, communion, community, to the breaking of the bread and to the prayers. First line in this week's first reading, we see the roots of what we call the Mass. What do we do at Mass? We come together in community. We hear the teaching of the apostles through the sacred word. We have the breaking of the bread and we have the prayers. So they're actually forming a community. And this isn't the days of the Acts of the Apostles. This is right after Pentecost. Okay, this is before the church has really spread. And they're already gathering together. And they're already sharing the teachings of the church, the teachings of the apostles, the apostolic life, and community, and the breaking of the bread. They're already doing this, right? The very first thing they're doing, we see the roots of the Mass. But why are they doing that? Because as a Christian, it's really hard to live the Christian life outside of community. It's really difficult to walk the walk of Christianity on your own as an individual. We're designed for love. We're designed for family. We're designed for community because we're designed in the image of the Trinity, who is perfect love, who is a perfect family, right? Father, Son, Spirit. It's a community. It's a community. It's a communion. That's what we're designed for. We're designed by communion, for communion, by community, for community. And that's what St. Peter is trying to get across to the people in this very, very early passage from the Acts of the Apostles. Also, we're gaining insight into what the church looked like in the very beginning. Why? As St. Peter tells us in the second reading, because the goal of our faith is what? Salvation. But not just yours alone. The goal of our faith is salvation for all, everyone's salvation. You see, so you're not just living this life just so you get to heaven. You and I are living the Catholic life so that everyone we know and everyone we interact with will also get to heaven. They'll also taste salvation. That's the goal of your faith. That's why you go to Mass. That's why you pray. That's why you watch a video like this. To enter more deeply into the faith, yes. To understand maybe the readings better, sure. But ultimately, so that you get to heaven. And that everyone you know and love, and even people you don't know or love, will also get to heaven to attain this goal of the faith that St. Peter's talking about. Why? Because as we see in the gospel, because God is mercy. So no matter how much someone has sinned, no matter how many doubts somebody has, God is mercy. And God desires their salvation. The same way that Thomas, poor Thomas, we've been bagging on this guy for 2,000 years. He misses one staff meeting, and now he's doubting Thomas. And now here's Jesus showing up to Thomas, who doubted. But because of his divine mercy, he's trying to do what? He's trying to restore Thomas into community, and he's trying to have communion with him. Okay, he's saying basically, put your hands into my wounds. These wounds that were born from what? From our sin, but also as a way to restore us, okay, to communion with the Father and in community with one another. That's what the faith does, and that's what Easter season is supposed to do, and that's why Jesus came, to restore us sinners to community, to restore us outcasts to community, to restore us into proper communion with Him and the Father through the power of the Spirit. And through the same power of that Spirit, God's divine mercy is opened up to all of us through things like the sacrament of confession. That God's mercy pours out on us at every single Mass and every time that we ask. And this is why we're not meant to live the Catholic life in solitude. We're not meant to live it on our own. Even if you're an introvert and you like to have your own space, that's okay. That ultimately, though, you can't just go in your room and achieve the same thing praying that is achieved when we come together with our brothers and sisters and we hear the teachings of the apostles. We come together in community and we break bread and we say the prayers. Because at every single Mass, we encounter God in the priesthood and in the community, in the sacred word, and most especially in this Holy Eucharist. That's where we actually see, smell, taste, and experience the mercy of God. Don't forget it as you come around the altar this week.